Today's lesson is the second installment of our Prosperity series for this year. Our series is titled Being Prosperous No Matter What, which aligns with our annual theme of how to stay centered no matter what. And this is our 7th year of including Unity's prosperity teachings in a 5-Sunday series. And it's a series that we spread out over the course of the entire year. We look at prosperity because we recognize its many different forms and shapes and sources and ways in which we can bring it into our lives. And then we spend some time in between each Sunday in order that we can take the time to work with the principles, the practices, the tools that are offered, begin to practice them in our lives, integrate them into as many aspects of our lives as we choose to do. And we began the series back in January. And after today, the next 3 installments will be offered in July, September, and November. Now, in July, we focused on the power of our imagination. We looked at its development phase and also its spiritual application phase. The first phase being the time in which we learn what our imagination can do and what is ours to do to tap into it. And then the second phase being the spiritual awakening of that attribute. And both of those work together in order to enlarge and expand our consciousness and help us take hold of the unlimited possibilities that are always available to us. And today we're going to take a look at our scars, the scars we all acquire as we navigate our way through this life we are living. And the perspective will be one in which we will begin to see them without shame or disdain. We will begin to see the growth that they can ignite. We'll begin to see how they can focus our vision on the inherent beauty with which all of life was created. So let's begin just by acknowledging that in all likelihood, we all have scars of some form that are reminders perhaps of difficult times or challenges, challenging experiences we've had over the course of our lives so far. And some of those scars may be physical, others may be emotional or even spiritual. Some may bring smiles to our faces, while others might bring a wince. But how we view them when we see them or when we feel them, what comes to mind when we're facing a life experience that seems to have a high probability of being another scar producing experience in our lives. How we come to all of that is what is going to go a long way as to how we see ourselves, which will then feed into how we move through and beyond whatever the situation or the circumstance might be. So I'd like to do a little exercise here. Later in the service, you're going to hear a song offered that will be, as they always are, in support and adding to this lesson. And in it, you're going to hear some comparison of words being offered. And I'm going to offer a few of them to you now. And ask that you listen and also notice how you feel when you think about which one you would prefer to embrace when faced with a difficult or potentially scarring situation. Okay, so here we go. Tearing or building. Captive or willing. Breakdown or surrender. A few more. Prison or room. Casket or womb. Dying or transcending. And the last one. Scars or character. Now, whether or not we may be able to do so or feel this way in this particular moment, I think we would all agree which of those words in those pairings would help us to see the beauty in our scars and how they have or will in the future enhance the stories of our lives. As I noted earlier, scars do come in all shapes and sizes and forms, and many of them attest to a life very, very well lived. Some give voice to adventures of childhood and its innocence. Others give voice to bold adventures in adulthood. And then there are the other scars that are not as easily seen as those that leave marks on our physical bodies. And they are the emotional scars, the spiritual scars. And some of those, maybe they have been the result of being bullied. Or maybe we have been on the receiving end of someone else telling us over and over and over again that we are less than in one way or another. Or maybe we are carrying the burdens, we are carrying the scars of shame or self-judgment or guilt. No matter what kind of scar we may have, no matter what its origin, each and every one of them has authored a part of our story. And each of those sentences, paragraphs, pages, chapters, or volumes has within it the ability to guide us to see our beauty, our inherent beauty. And that's not beauty that's that valued by placing some sort of, again, value or label on outer appearances. I know that I can look in the mirror, I can look out into this world and easily list any number of things that I would judge as not fitting into that outer definition of beauty. As it pertains to myself, spiritual principles tell me that when I see something in the mirror and that triggers a question of my beauty, it is pointing me to a part of myself that needs a little bit more love, a part that needs a little bit more attention and care, maybe some compassion, a part of me that is asking to be brought back into balance with my wholeness.
So adorable.
In 2020, the theme for Unity Worldwide headquarters was perfect vision. And it was in one of their supporting articles for that theme that I saw that phrase, balance of my wholeness. And basically what those words are saying is that there is no part of me, there is no part of you that can be omitted, left out, overlooked, ignored from any equation of beauty. So sometimes the shift from our scars to character begins when we do some healing on the inside, healing on those mental, emotional, spiritual planes. The story that you all likely are well familiar with by now, but the story of our co-founder, Myrtle Fillmore, and her healing that led to the beginning of this unity movement is often told with a primary focus on the physical healing that she experienced. And yet that healing only came forth after she addressed the emotional and spiritual scars that she carried inside of herself. From her earliest childhood memories, she recalled others always telling her, referring to her, introducing her as the sickly child. She was part of a family system that taught her year after year after year that she inherited all of her physical maladies from her father's side of the family. As an adult, she referred to herself as an emaciated woman. She called herself a woman who was stamped with illness. When she had her spiritual awakening to her inherent beauty, a powerful and spiritual shift away from inherited illness, she began her healing process by offering prayers of forgiveness, prayers of releasing all judgment and condemnation of herself and of others that she had been thinking, speaking, and carrying around with her for years. She offered prayers of forgiveness for all of the messages of illness and disease that she had sent to her own body. It was only after months of that practice that changes in her physical health began to come forth. It was as if that healing done at the emotional level, the healing at the spiritual level, was what allowed her body to wake up to health and, more importantly, wake up to wholeness. Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute, our educational arm, offers a class that's called Foundations of Unity. And in it, I found this. The deepest sense of healing is the restoration of wholeness in our mind and heart, inner and outer selves. It goes beyond the curing of particular diseases to the establishment of a free flow of life and energy throughout a person's being. So how do we get there? How do we arrive at this place of wholeness, a place where we can see everything, including our scars, as being beautiful contributors to our stories, beautiful contributors that can enhance and enlarge our lives? Well, that same article from 2020 had a suggestion. And so here's another brief exercise for you today. I'd like you to remember a time when you came upon a tree that caught your attention. You could have been right next to it out in nature. You could have seen it in a photograph on television, whatever, but it caught your attention. And it was a tree that clearly had been around for a long time. So try to call to mind some of what you saw, some of the details of that tree that you can remember. I'm going to offer two ways that a person could have seen that tree. One might have seen that tree and described their experience as having seen some dead and dried twigs, some broken and crackling leaves, knotty and peeling bark. Another person might have seen that very same tree and described it as a tree standing tall in its glory and splendor, and having borne witness to the perfect rhythm of imperfect beauty. The difference between those descriptions is that the first person saw that tree with their eyes, their physical eyes, eyes that judge, eyes that saw the seeming imperfections of the tree in the very same way that we can often see the scars that we've attained over living our lives. The second person saw the tree with their I, the letter capital I, the I that is our wholeness, the I that is our spiritual nature, our spiritual essence. And when we use that I, there is nothing to see but beauty. It is the ability to see this beauty in all things, because we're no longer making judgments about it like we tend to do when we look only with our physical eyes. It's because we're no longer defining beauty the way someone else might think it to be. Instead, we're remembering the wholeness that is not only in us, but is present in all life, all life. And seeing through that spiritual lens also eliminates any sense of separation that we may have as we look at scars. Sometimes we can feel separated even from ourselves or from our environment. Seeing through that eye, distractions just fall away, and this wonderfully new and wide, beautiful view of the world and of life comes into view. It's a view that helps us to draw ourselves towards each other, the beauty within us that has no outside labeled definition. It draws us together where it can unite us, it can heal us, it can nourish us, it will grow us, it can expand us, it can enhance our lives. The article offered that the tree would not be the tree without all its elements. The universe knows nothing else than how to make beauty. And my work, our work, is to remember I am a part of that universe. My story, in all its glory and all its depravity, is a seedling of the great universal story. Each of us, a seedling, with such potential to grow into so much more, so much potential to offer to each other, to this world, so much more. Mark Nepo is a poet and a philosopher who lived through a very difficult experience of cancer. And he's noted that it was a result of dealing with it and healing from it, that in his words, he gained deep insights into the challenge of staying present to live life fully, no matter what circumstances life hands us. And those insights became the basis for his writing, became the basis for his teaching and his work as a spiritual teacher. And he was interviewed, I believe it was last year, for an article in Unity magazine. And in that interview, he noted a few things related to how we are speaking about beauty today, along with one very specific quality that he felt was the quickest route to healing our wounds and enhancing our lives. And one comment that was made was that of being clear about our identity. Prior to being diagnosed with cancer, Nepo identified himself as a poet. He saw poetry as what led him first to know God and in his words, to feel filled with its presence. However, one of the lessons he learned as a result of his journey with cancer is that we are going to continue to grow in life. That is our call, and it is to grow in life until that life is totally complete. And he said, I came to understand that if the spirit that fills me was going to keep growing, it couldn't be contained in this pot by which I kept calling myself a poet. Though I will always know the world through the lens of a poet, that identity is too small for the nameless spirit that moves through each of us. Another point he made had to do with beauty and how we often tend to define it in terms of physical perfection. And he spoke of his interest in what he called words eroding over time. And by that, he meant that over time, words can take on new meanings that are very different from their original definitions. And so he went back to the Aramaic roots of the word perfection and found that it did not originally mean to be without flaws, to be without mistakes. He said the word meant thorough. That's it, thorough. And he feels that the reward for being thorough is being and living wholehearted. So you can see in his writing or in this interview, so much of what we're looking at in our context today. You know, first, the fact that the poet in him was not the totality of his identity, nor are our scars the totality of ours. We can see our identities more clearly when we view them through the lens of spirit in us, the spirit that fills us, the I of us. His perspective on perfection is the very same perspective we have today on wholeness. And in both, there is a willingness to be present to life. And being present to life brings experiences of living life fully. So now here's the all-important quality that Mr. Nepo offered that can put all of this in action and put it into action for us and do it very quickly. And that quality is vulnerability. Nepo said, the word vulnerable means to hold a wound gracefully, which doesn't mean being stoic. He said, we all know that physical wounds need to be open to air and light, that if they're covered too tightly, they won't heal, they'll get infected. Vulnerability is the courage to be soft and open enough until the light starts to heal the part in us that is wounded. And I'll add to that the part of us that is scarred. So what this is saying to us is that in order to heal, to grow, to expand, to enhance our lives, we have to be who we are. We have to be that real, authentic, true us. And that means holding nothing back, not hiding or trying to cover up those less attractive parts of us as we would see or define them to be. It includes everything about us. Nepo was asked in the interview if he thought if we progressed through layers or tiers of vulnerability, the more we go through life and the more we use it, or is it just that we become more comfortable with it as time goes on? And he felt that it's pretty much the same threshold we cross over when we choose to be vulnerable. However, he said, as we grow, the lessons change, the insights deepen, and how we're transformed changes. Think about a pianist. A pianist plays the same keys over and over and over again. And sometimes it could be, or it could just start to sound like the same song over and over and over again. And then there's other times, still playing those same keys over and over and over again, but having opened up to that creative channel within them, new music comes forth. New music comes forth. And as long as they keep that channel open, new music will always begin to come forth. It will be new and different, more complex. Their skill sets will deepen, experiences will change, how it's received will grow. And it's the same thing for us. We have this one life that we live day after day after day for as many days as we are given. And when we see our lives as being scarred and ourselves as being less than beautiful and lacking in worth or value, each and every day is going to start to look the same and pretty much be unenjoyable. But when we see our inherent beauty instead, that's when life grows us. That's when life deepens our insights. That's when life offers a multitude of transformative experiences that will become some of the most exciting chapters of our stories. And it's a story that others will want to read. It is a story that others will want to be a part of. When we see vulnerability as the strength it can be, even if we are feeling the weakest we have ever felt, it invites those same energies of wholeness that we talked about a few moments ago when talking about willingness. It draws others to us who will support us and help us in writing these particular chapters of our story. It acts as a voice between two hearts that are naturally being drawn to and growing towards each other. It is the coming together of two or more parts of that universal story that we are creating together. The article of reference today closed with these words: beauty asks me to be with my story, attend to it until I can be touched by it and see with my eye, capital I. You can answer what beauty asks when you respond with a willingness to surrender to spirit in you and build a life that has so many rooms for you to enter and enjoy. Each one a sacred womb waiting to nurture and nourish and give life to anything that you want to create. Experiences that will transcend all human judgment and reveal the glory and the splendor of you, the truest character of your story. Perhaps you recognized the words I emphasized just now as those we had the option to choose when this lesson began. Choose them. Choose them and answer the question that beauty asks of you, because your story is one to add beauty to this universe. And it is a beauty known only as you. God bless you.